This is a download from BFM 89.9, the business station.
Good morning, Dodge. We saw the stock meltdown happening, particularly on the energy sector losses, Dow ending about 260 points lower. What can we expect from this news?
Good morning, Ibrahim. More volatility. There's various things to watch. First of all, there is more volatility to the downside. Today, the New York Stock Exchange registered another 90% downside day, with down volume being 96.3% of the total up and down volume. That's indicative of widespread selling. We do expect a bounce back, but unless the bounce back comes on good volume with a 90% upside day, there is more of a move to the downside. The questions the market has to answer now are more of a negative nature. The balance is to the downside. So and the other thing that we're really watching now is how investors are reacting. Up until now, we have seen investors buying pullbacks. Now we are beginning to see investors selling rallies. Very, very different, much more negative emotion involved with the market. It probably will stay this way for another week or so until we get behind or in back of the Fed decision next week. That will give some clarity until we get to the elections in November. But I suspect that until we get past the Fed decision, we're going to see more volatility, and very little longer-term investment decisions are being made. It's much more shorter-term and much more reacting to the markets, and we're seeing more of a selling the rallies. This is a very different emotion that we're seeing now as opposed to 2 weeks ago.
So the energy sector losses have trended lower, but technology companies are actually picking up new investors. The Bank of England is buying or has included Apple on a list of companies that qualify for its new economic stimulus bond buying scheme. What can we make out of this BOE's decision to buy into Apple bonds?
Well, I think Apple is a good company. It's had support. It's found support at 90, 95, and 100. It's now at 107. It had a very good day today. I suspect part of the move to support the American company has to do with the decision about the Irish tax situation and the fact that now that we have Brexit occurring, the fact that the Euroland is trying to create more dependence on the Eurozone. I think more of a political situation. Yes, Apple's a fine company. It deserves the support, but I think there are politics involved with this, and I think it's going to stay this way, and you're going to see this kind of back and forth and support for Apple outside of the Euro faction. I think you're going to see that for another 6 to 12 months.
It's interesting you touched a little bit on the back and forth and on the political front. There are two other companies that is part of the 100 companies that qualify for BOE's new corporate debt purchase initiative. This includes British American Tobacco and Imperial Brands and US fast food giant McDonald's, whose tax affairs are also under the investigation in Brussels. How do you think this will play in terms of the investment strategy of the Bank of England? Do you think this will come in the way of how they make decisions?
No, I think it'll be part of their decision-making process. I think that now that they've made the big decision on Brexit, and they seem to be surviving, I mean, they haven't really fallen, and the world is seeing that England is going, the UK is going to survive. There's going to be more strength on the anti-Euro side of the deal, and so I think politics will continue to play, and I think anything that the UK will support now will be viewed in terms of standing independent and standing tall. So I don't expect to have a firm conclusion to this for quite a while, and I think the situation is going to turn much more political as we get beyond the pure economics of the companies that are involved.
We saw some military training between Russia and China. How do you think this will impact global markets?
It is a very nasty move. The second and third world largest countries banding together, particularly in an area where there's a lot of tension already. We're going into a situation where the U.S. is undergoing some political indecisiveness and will continue to do so for the next 2 months. I think it won't affect economics as much as politics, and that's more of the concern because the uncertainty will be the economy, the economics. We are going to see improvement in China. We are going to see improvement, slow but growing improvement across the world. But the political situation is going to intensify, and that's really a concern, and it's going to knock some of the certainty and stability that we've seen begin to grow. I think it's going to take a step back, and so I think it just makes for a much more uncertain situation across the world.
For much of the summer, Hillary Clinton deliberately kept a low profile, fundraising private and pursuing a hands-off campaign strategy. Now she has been diagnosed with pneumonia. How will this affect her campaign? How will this affect the markets?
Well, it's unfortunate that it's happened now, but particularly unfortunate for her is her lack of full disclosure and transparency before having to announce it. She was forced into announcing it, and that has created more uncertainty towards her being elected. Up till now, the press has been very supportive of her and indicating that she was the clear winner. The press can't do that anymore because it's not clear, and the fact that you had Obama going out there and campaigning for her today indicates the implication of what's happened. So it does create a lot of uncertainty. It certainly is going to make the Democratic Party consider what it does if there's a situation where she can't stand for election. But that's down the road. I think for now we have to deal with the facts as they're coming out, and I certainly hope that it is not as severe as it appears to be and that she makes a quick recovery.
Pleasure speaking to you. That was Dorland, Chief Investment Officer at Landor Fuest Capital Managers in New York.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. To find more great interviews, go to bfm.my or find us on iTunes. BFM 89.9, the business station.